Hey y'all, it's Shekinah with Spoken Like a True Goddess podcast, a space curated for goddesses worldwide where we embrace our true femininity, elevate our confidence, and step into the beautiful and abundant lives we were destined for. Welcome back to the final episode of the Goddess Guide to Love. Over the past few weeks, we've explored love in all of its forms. So we went over self-love and that being the foundation of all love in your life, romantic love and how to use your femininity to have balanced and harmonious connections with the men in our lives, and platonic love and the complexities that come with building sisterhood with friends. But today, we're diving into a love that truly fuels your soul, a love that has you walking around full of light, full of love. And that is the love we need to fuel our passions and our purpose. If you're like me, you've probably at one point in your life felt like you were meant for more. Like there's something inside of you just waiting to be fully expressed. Whether that's a creative pursuit, a mission that lights you up, a passion, but it's more than just a mere hobby. It's like a divine pull, a divine calling. And I believe when you align with that calling, you step into a life of true abundance. I know this personally. Years ago, God put this podcast on my heart. And at the time, I'm like, absolutely not. For one, I had so much shame in my life regarding my motherhood situation. And I talked about that in previous episodes. And two, I was so accustomed to not showing up in life as my authentic self and still getting my needs met with very little resistance. Whereas before in my life, I noticed that when I did show up and I was my true authentic self, I was met with so much resistance that I found ways to maneuver through life with no resistance, although I wasn't being true to my soul. And it's ironic because a lot of that shame came from me simply not answering that calling in the first place, or me simply not living in my purpose, which led me into the current situation that I was in. In the situation that I got myself into, it was so different than what I seen, than what God showed me that my life could be. So that's also where a lot of that shame came from. It felt like I wasn't even living my own life. And now I'm in a situation that's not even mine. It's like, this is not even my life. And that's how I felt. And then when it came to learning how to maneuver in life while not being my authentic self, when I lived in Vegas, I sold timeshare. And I'll never forget, it was my first timeshare job. And, I was about 23, 24. I was so excited about all these new work clothes, pencil skirts and heels and pretty colors and prints and blouses, all this stuff. And I got there and I couldn't sell for nothing. Like nobody would buy anything from me. Like I'm showing up every day and I could not sell. And I remember this lady who was a top saleswoman and she did great. She's like, let me hear your pitch. So I'm going my whole spiel. I'm going through the whole thing with her. And she's like, okay, that's good. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. She's like, you have to understand these couples, when they come here, they're on vacation and nothing is going to happen unless the wife is on board. She's like, I think you look great. I like how you dress, but you have to understand they're on vacation. So the wife's coming and she's in casual clothes. She's wearing, denim shorts and flip flops. And if she takes any threat or feel any way threatened by you, you're not going to sell them anything because nothing's going to happen unless she's on board. So I was like, okay. Like I personally didn't see anything wrong with how I dressed. I mean, it was professional. At that time, being 23, 24 years old, I didn't really understand like human nature or how that could come off as a threat. And I said, okay. So the next job that I got, I took that into consideration. So I will wear slacks, I will wear like ballerina flats, I will wear just more neutral colors and things like that. And when I tell you, I sold so well. Like I was always the top salesperson. I just could sell to anybody. So that kind of planted a seed for me to say, okay, if I don't show up my authentic self, or if I show up this way, I could still get to the finish line and not have any resistance. But if I show up my true authentic self, I'm going to have resistance. So that kind of planted that seed for me. And I was living in that for years. But it came a point where I'm like, that worked for that season in my life. But where God is taking me now, that's not going to work anymore. And when God was putting the podcast on my heart, I was petrified. I'm like, there's no way I'm about to go and talk to these people. Like, I'm good. I'm just going to, live my life. I have like my core people and things like that. But it's been so strong on my heart that I'm like, okay, I finally accepted it. I'm finally doing this. And by pursuing my passion and pursuing what God has put on my heart, I can honestly say that it's putting me in alignment to fulfill my destiny. As I continue to do this, it's opening up more opportunities for me to get closer to what's promised to me in the first place. And I believe that's what pursuing those passions and purpose would do for all of us. If there's a pulling in your heart, if there's something you can't let go, there's a reason why you can't let that go. There's a reason why it won't leave your mind. There's a reason why no matter how much time goes by, you still think about it or you still feel called or pulled to it. And once you explore what that why is, that's when the magic starts to happen. That's when you elevate. That's when you're living in abundance, when you're doing things and you're not doing it from a place of dread, but you're truly creating and you're truly doing things from a place of love. There's a Japanese philosophy called Ikigai. And Ikigai combines passion, talent, purpose, and fulfillment to find your reason for living. There's a Venn diagram that goes into a little bit more detail and explains this. And basically, it breaks it down into 4 areas of what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And this ties into pursuing those passions and purpose. When you answer that calling, when you explore what's been on your heart, that's when life happens. When you can balance all those things. Okay, it's a reason why this is on my heart. And once you pursue it, then you'll see that that very thing is going to get you that life that you're deserved. It's going to open up those doors so you could be in that heavenly place. So you could be in that place of purpose and not just survival. So you could be in that place where your work and what you do is beneficial. It's beneficial to yourself. It's beneficial to those around you. You're able to live a good and comfortable life. You're able to elevate those around you. You're able to live from your heart. You're able to live an illuminated life and a full life because you answered that calling that you have. And that's why it's important to create from love and not approval. I know following or pursuing your passions and your purpose, it could come with some resistance. No one likes putting themselves out there. No one likes to be judged or perceived, but it's on your heart for a reason. When you create from love and not looking for people's approval or people's validation, you're creating from a place of freedom. You're pitting what was putting you into the world. And God would just keep filling you up with what you need. And it's just a never ending exchange. You're full, so you're able to give. You give, so you're receiving. And you never know how that would impact people or the impact that it will have on the world. My favorite book is The Alchemist. And I find it so interesting because that book is so impactful for me. I mean, it taught me about true love, it taught me about life, it taught me about God. Like, it was a truly, truly impactful book for me. And it's beautifully written. It has so much wisdom and beauty in it. When Paulo Coelho first wrote that book, in the first week, it only sold one copy. One copy. That beautiful masterpiece only sold one copy. And 6 months later, I believe it sold its second copy. And then by the end of the year, the publisher dropped him. So imagine if that was the end of it. Imagine if he let that discourage him, if he didn't pursue to find a different publisher or push forward with that calling or what was put on his heart to give to the world. So many people have been impacted by that book. And now it's one of the best selling books ever, only because he fought for his dream. He fought for what he believed in, and it impacted many people. He had no clue the impact that it was going to have. When he wrote that book, he wasn't thinking about, okay, 25 years from now, some girl from Ohio is going to read this book and it's going to change her life. No, you can't possibly think that far ahead. But it was in his heart to write it. He wrote it and it did have that ripple effect. So when you are creating and you do have the courage to explore your passions and your purpose, that's where you want to create from. Create from authenticity, create from love. Those who are supposed to connect with that, those who is supposed to reach, they will find it. And as simple as that. You don't have to create from a place of, oh, okay, like what's the trend or what do this person need to hear or thinking about what do you think someone wants. Create from authenticity, whatever's in your heart, put it out there. And then those who are supposed to gravitate towards it will. Lately, I've just been having a strong urge to just live outside the box and just break free from my conditioned living, and create the life that I'm proud of, no matter what the sacrifice for that is. So, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And since I start exploring that and seeing how that would look for me and my family, it feels like more opportunities have been presented to me or more opportunities to at least expand my mind of the possibilities and what's actually out there. Because me personally, I'm like, I can't work 40 hours a week too much longer. Like I can't do that. I got a good 6 to 8 hours a week, but I can't do 40. And it's like the things that I actually care about, which is, hanging out with my son, taking care of my son, doing the podcast and things like that, it doesn't get the best of me. I believe that opening your heart to those possibilities, pursuing your passions can lead you to that life. I know God wouldn't put that on my heart if it wasn't in my realm of possibilities. So now it's time to just explore it and be open to wherever that takes me and however that looks. I'm going to keep today's episode a little shorter, but for this week's challenge, I just encourage you to really sit and think about that thing that sets you on fire. When you think about it, it lights you up. That thing that you haven't been able to let go for years. And when you identify that, make some steps to actually pursue it. I'm telling you, you don't know what doors or what opportunities can be opened by following and answering that calling, especially if you're not completely fulfilled in your life right now. If there's areas of your life that's kind of unfulfilled, you never know why that's on your heart. You never know the overall big picture. But when you take that first step, then things could be revealed to you. Then your mind can open up to the possibilities. Sometimes we're so stuck in our day to day and our conditioning and just what we know. We don't even know that there's literally someone out there that's living the life that you're imagining. And they're not better than you. They're not smarter than you. They just jumped. They just leaped. So that's the challenge for this week. take a minute, think about what's been on your heart. Think about that thing that fires you up, that makes you feel elevated, and make the first step to pursue it. That's all for today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed. If you love Spoken Like a True Goddess podcast, leave a rating and a review on the podcast app that you're tuning in on. I would love to hear from you. Be sure to follow us on all socials at Spoken Like a True Goddess. Also, if you would like sisterly advice from me, email your questions to sltgadvice@gmail.com. It will be answered on the pod with love and discretion, of course. Well, I'm excited for our next Girl Talk. Talk soon. Bye.